Look, wizards are my favorite class in any RPG, any video game. Anytime I can play a wizard, I play a wizard. But I'm gonna come out and say it. Wizards got shorted when it came to subclasses in Pathfinder Second Edition. What do they get? An extra spell slot, a focus spell, a minor benefit that is sometimes just a class feat, and some things that don't even do anything until 4th level. Now, I'm not really talking about the arcane schools. Those are fine, even if their focus spells tend to be a little lackluster. I mean, you've got tiny summoning buff, make them sick, don't hit me, I'll roll for you, lame magic missile, best spell in the game, physical guidance, actually pretty good, and wow, difficult terrain. But like I said, I'm not talking about those today. I'm talking about the 5 thesis options wizards have that, to me, are incredibly underwhelming. The hardest part is that on paper, these theses seem really cool and effective, but in practice, they either come up so rarely you might as well forget they exist, or the class already has feats that do the exact same thing. Let me talk about why the current 5 wizard theses really leave something to be desired when it comes to gameplay. Improved familiar attunement. This is pretty cool. It gives you a familiar with one more ability than usual, and it gets extra abilities for free at 6th, 12th, and 18th level. It also replaces Drain Bonded Item with Drain Familiar, which in my case is kind of a downgrade, because it's way easier for your familiar to die than to lose your ring or your necklace or whatever. So what does this all really mean? Well, it means you get a slightly stronger familiar compared to a wizard who took the familiar and enhanced familiar class feats. Sounds pretty decent, you know, almost kind of getting 2 free feats from your subclass. Well, it would be pretty decent if the low-level wizard feats weren't such a poor selection. Let me show you. A level 2 wizard only has 8 unique options to pick from. 3 of them are metamagic. One of them is Counterspell, one of them is Cantrip Expansion, and let's be real, who has ever picked Cantrip Expansion? One of them might as well just be for flavor, and the other 2 are Familiar and Enhanced Familiar. Due to this poor selection of feat options, a lot of wizards end up taking Familiar and Enhanced Familiar anyway. And here's a fun fact, if you're a Familiar Attunement wizard and you didn't take Enhanced Familiar, and another wizard did, well, their Familiar is actually going to be stronger than yours until 6th level, and yours won't be any better than theirs until 12th level. Now let me be clear, I don't think Familiar Attunement is inherently a bad feature. It is just, unfortunately, made weaker due to the poor feat selection around it. It's really sort of a victim of circumstance. Doesn't make it a better choice, though. Now, to be honest, this is a really tricky subclass to fix, because if you make the familiar stronger, well, congratulations, you just completely overwrote the witch's entire identity. If wizards can just have stronger familiars than witches, that kind of makes witches way less relevant. Unfortunately, because the witch exists, the best fix for familiar attunement is to remove it and replace it with something else. Simply allow wizards to take familiars if they want to take the feats, but replace this thesis with something different. But what could they replace that thesis with? I don't know. But let's talk about a worse thesis. Metamagical experimentation. Really cool name, right? Let's talk about this. First off, this subclass does nothing until 4th level, aside from give you Reach Spell or Widen Spell. That's it. You know who else can get Reach Spell and Widen Spell at level 1? Any human wizard. So this is already a pretty big drawback. Well, what about at level 4? Well, it's still awful! Until higher levels, Metamagic is pretty weak in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and only being able to get Metamagic feats equal to half your level is incredibly limiting. A level 20 Metamagical Experimentation Wizard can prepare Reach Spell, Widen Spell, Conceal Spell, Silence Spell, Bond Conservation, and Quicken Casting. That is it. Quicken Casting is easily the strongest of these options, once per day, allowing you to cast a spell for 1 less action. Fantastic! And you can take it at level 19 with this feature. On top of that, you can still only use it on level 7 or lower spells once you're level 19. The Advanced Player's Guide also added Energy Ablation and Non-Lethal Spell, but they do not save this thesis. This is easily the weakest on this entire list. Alright, Spell Blending. Spell Blending is awesome. I can't even pretend to get mad at Spell Blending. My only big gripe is that it's useless until level 3 and doesn't reach its full potential until level 5. Effectively, Spell Blending lets you sacrifice 2 spell slots of 1 level to gain an extra spell slot of up to 2 levels higher than the slots sacrificed. So at 5th level, you could sacrifice 2 level 1 spell slots to gain an extra level 3 spell slot during that day. Pretty solid. The hardest part here is especially at low levels. Even at level 5, you have a fairly limited number of slots to work with. So sacrificing a net 1 slot, granted for a much stronger spell, is still pretty debilitating. Until you're level 7 or level 9, you really do need to make every spell count, otherwise you're gonna run out of fuel real fast. I suppose technically at level 1 you could give up a level 1 spell slot to get 2 additional cantrips, but come on. We both know you're not trading Magic Missile for Dancing Lights. Once you're higher than level 10, level 11, 13, 15, this starts to skyrocket your efficiency as a spellcaster, because you can do this more than once per day. Sacrifice 2 level 1 spell slots for a level 3. Sacrifice 2 level 2 spell slots for a level 4. Sacrifice 2 level 3 spell slots for a level 5. You have way more firepower now, and you're not in danger of running out of spell slots anymore because you're high enough level. You just get to cast and throw out more of your strongest stuff, and you still have plenty of weak stuff on backup. I'll also admit that at this point, it is more worth it to sacrifice a level 1 spell slot for 2 additional cantrips. A level 4 Produce Flame is going to do way more damage than a level 1 Magic Missile spell. Overall, I think this is easily the strongest and most solid wizard subclass in the entire game. I just wish it came online a little bit earlier and had some use at that 1 to 4 level range. Spell Substitution. This thesis is so close. Guys, it's so close to having a real, heavy, consistent impact on your gameplay. Having the ability to switch out a prepared spell almost like a sorcerer would be so cool to have on a wizard. If combat breaks out and you weren't expecting it, well hey, replace that air bubble spell you had prepared and throw out a magic missile. The problem comes with one restriction Paizo added to this subclass. 10 minutes. It takes 10 in-game minutes for your wizard to sit down, open his spellbook, wipe off one of his spells, write in a new one, and replace the slot. This means that this thesis is only useful in one direction, replacing a combat spell with a roleplay/utility spell. Unless you have really ample warning, you won't have time to replace a utility spell with a combat spell. I've been in a campaign now for the better part of 6 months, and one of my players is a wizard with the spell substitution thesis. Do you know how many times he's gotten to use that thesis? Once. One time. Now it was helpful, and it did really, really well. But for your subclass to only matter and only come up one time in over 40 hours of gameplay? That just feels bad, man. I honestly think there's an easy fix for this. Once per day, for one action. Imagine how cool it would be to get ambushed, and everyone looks over as the wizard flashes quickly as his once per day spell substitution kicks in, and he throws out a fireball he had no idea he was going to use that day. That would be so cool, and it would allow for this wizard, again, once per day, to be this nice, flexible caster. They could even add feats later on at like level 8 or so that could upgrade this to twice per day. Make a prerequisite that it has to be the spell substitution thesis and let them do it twice per day. That's a fantastic upgrade and would be really good competition for the other feats at that level, such as Advanced School Spell and Bond Conservation. This thesis is by far not the worst offender on this list, but that 10-minute restriction really gets to me. It really gets under my skin, and I think it would be cool to make this more limited in its uses, but more free in when it's used. Staff Nexus is one of the most cool and unique subclasses available to wizards, but boy, is it overcomplicated and only supports one very specific type of playstyle. First off, I should explain how this works, because a lot of people don't understand it. Basically, you pick one first level spell and one cantrip you know, and you shove them into a staff that you make and have ready at the start of your first level character. This first level spell, though, means nothing until 3rd level. Effectively, all this subclass does until level 3 is lets you have an additional cantrip prepared that you can only cast while you hold your staff. The reason you can't even use this first level spell until 3rd level is because, unlike normal staves, your staff does not automatically get free charges. For those of you who aren't aware, if you have something such as a level 3 Staff of Fire, well, at the beginning of every single day, if you are a prepared caster, it gains a number of charges equal to your highest level spell slot. If you can cast 3rd level spells, your Staff of Fire gets 3 charges. And you can spend 1 charge per spell level of the spell cast from the staff. So if the staff casts Burning Hands at 1st level, it costs 1 charge. Your Staff Nexus staff does not automatically generate charges like this. In order to power up your Staff Nexus, you need to sacrifice your own spell slots. So if, at level 3, you sacrifice one of your, 2 2nd level spell slots, you give your staff 2 charges, and those charges can be used to cast the 1st level spell inside of your staff. You're effectively giving up a 2nd level spell for 2 additional 1st level spells, however they're limited to the spells in the staff. And this scales. If you have access to 6th level spells, well, you can sacrifice a 6th level spell slot to get 6 1st level spells from your staff. Also, at higher levels, you gain the ability to sacrifice multiple spell slots. So if you're level 20, yeah, you can sacrifice 3 9th level spell slots to get 27 1st level spells out of your staff each day. Additionally, you can upgrade this staff. You can craft using your makeshift staff nexus into any existing staff from the item list. You can upgrade your staff into a Staff of Fire, and along with Produce Flame and Burning Hands, it will also have the 1st level spell and cantrip you put into it when you first created the character. This will effectively expand the number of spells available to you as a wizard at the cost of sacrificing your higher level spell slots. You can almost think of this as the inverse of the spell blending thesis. Now, there is one big glaring flaw with the Staff Nexus Wizard. Just buy a staff, or make a staff. Sure, it won't have the 1st level spell and cantrip you initially put in there, but it will get free charges every single day, equal to your highest level spell slot without you sacrificing anything. And if you really want to, you can sacrifice a spell slot to charge it further. You can't sacrifice 2 or 3 like a high level Staff Nexus, but close enough. I'm really not sure why Paizo felt the need to remove the automatic charges from the Staff Nexus Wizard. At 1st level, that would grant them 1 additional 1st level spell per day. And that spell is already predetermined in their staff. They cannot change it. This only increases to 2 additional spells per day at level 3, and at that point they can already buy a Staff of Fire for 60 gold! This Staff of Fire grants you 2 free charges every day at level 3, and you can cast Burning Hands and Produce Flame with it. I guess Paizo thought that maybe it could be abused and made super overpowered in some way that they couldn't foresee, so they nerfed it into the ground for safety. But yeah, that's my fix for this thesis. Give them their free charges like any other staff in the game. It won't break anything. So, did you notice anything peculiar about these subclasses? Something that most of them share. None of them are combat-centric. Sure, the Metamagic and the Staff Nexus can assist a wizard in a combat scenario, but none of these are designed around a wizard who spent their time studying specifically for battle. Plenty of wizards study to be able to effectively sling spells in the heat of combat, in war, in fights. So why isn't there a thesis that reflects this? Well, what if I told you? There is. I present to you the Fundamentalist Wizard. This is a completely original, No-Nat1's homebrewed wizard thesis. Now, I can't actually go into full detail here because this is a special piece of homebrew only available to pledges over on the No-Nat1's Patreon of $10 or more. But you know what? I like you. I'm gonna give you a little sneak peek. The Fundamentalist Wizard spent their years of study mastering the basics. While other wizards learned their cantrips and moved on, the Fundamentalist focused on those cantrips, mastered them, and can now sling these spells with maximum efficiency. Wizards with this thesis get to add their intelligence modifier to any damaging cantrip they cast, even if that cantrip already added their spellcasting modifier. So with a +4 intelligence, that produced flame just became 1d4 plus 8 at level 1. While that may sound like a lot at low levels, this does not scale except with your own modifier. So even at level 20, this is still only offering around a +5 or +6 to damage. This thesis also comes with a completely custom arcane-only cantrip, as well as an entirely unique archetype. All of this is available right now on the No Nat One's Patreon. If you click the link in the description or in the pinned comment below, you'll be taken right there. And if you pledge $10 or more, you will get instant access to the Fundamentalist Wizard, Spellslinger archetype, and all of my past homebrew right then and there. Speaking of patrons, I want to thank all of you right now. Every single one of you scrolling by my head right now. From the 50s to the 5s, everything in between. None of this would be possible without you. It makes me so happy that the content I produce is entertaining enough that you feel that you want to financially support me, and that means the world. So shout out to you patrons, and shout out to everyone who has ever donated during one of my live streams. It seriously makes my day. So that's it for me, y'all. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the Wizard theses. Do you think they're fine? Do you think they're too weak? Like, do you agree with me? Do you think they're too strong? What would you change? Let me know right down there. You know I love hearing from you guys. So thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, No Nat Ones.